Hi, my name's Lisa. I'm an alcoholic, aka prison chick. It wasn't until I got sober that I got a cool nickname. What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. That's what I'm going to try and give to you. What it was like was hell, to put it simply. And I was in prison. My first 30 days was spent in prison, so congratulations on not spending your first 30 in prison. I went to a work release program, and while I was there was like 30 women over on this wing and about 300 men. The number one rule was don't talk to the men. So like a very good alcoholic, I smiled at one and made sure we caught the bus together. What I didn't know is that he was actually being put into my life because that's how I was going to be introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. His father had like 20-something years at that time, and I asked him, like, so what do you read? Because when you're in prison, you read a lot. And he said, oh, I read the big book. And I'm like, you've been here for 18 months and you're reading the same book over and over? Loser. But I didn't say anything. I'm like, sure, okay, whatever. What's this AA stuff? And I was like, all right, well, AA sounds good, right? So I started telling my family, well, when I get out, I'm going to AA, and you're going to have to babysit the kids. I have 3 daughters. And they were like, yeah, right, lady. I had a stepdad. We called him Papa Sammy. And he was of that old school mentality, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get it done. What is wrong with you? So he would tell me things like, you are the only criminal I know, Lisa. And I'm like, well, maybe you should get out more. Could introduce you to a few friends if you'd like, but watch your wallet. While I was in there, cultivating this illegal relationship, because it is actually illegal to do anything with anybody, even yourself when you're in prison. So I think that's kind of funny, like how are you going to control that? But I was, of course, going to programs because programs sounded good. And I went to a program, a group, a class, and the guy that was in there picked up a dry erase marker and said, all right, I want you guys to list everything that you've lost behind drugs and alcohol. So he starts writing, kids, home, jobs, marriages, wife, husband, all kinds of things. And finally he said, stop. All right, we're done. Because we could fill up the entire whiteboard and probably the next one too. The thing that stood out to me was kids. Because what he said was, you have chose drugs and alcohol before every single one of these things that are up here. I get chills today. That man at the time had 14 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I got out and I started going to AA, I never ran into him, and I've always wanted to. He's back in Vegas, so maybe he'll move to Utah. Who knows? Lots of people are coming, right? But that was absolutely just, it touched a chord in me, and I didn't realize how deeply he had honestly touched a chord within my soul. Of course, we got into trouble for talking to one another. We both went to the hole, and he was released directly from the hole to a halfway house in Las Vegas. It's called the Samaritan House. It's lovingly nicknamed the Sam House. It's been around for over 50 years, so it's pretty awesome. And he sent me a card with his number, and I started to call him. And at first, when I called, it told me the number was no longer in service. And I'm like, typical tweaker move, got a phone, it's already shut off. All right. But I called from somebody else's phone, like a cell phone, when I went to work, and because I would leave and go to work like a normal human being, and then I'd come back and be an inmate at night. So it was kind of weird. And it was actually working. It was a problem with the phone system, the prison phone system. It needed to update its prefixes or some crap. So we start to talk. And I'm like, well, can you put some money on my books so that I can call you and I don't have to use my paycheck for it? He said, sure. I said, oh, it's package time. You think you can send me a package? And he did. You know, the first thing I had asked him when I talked to him was, so have you gotten loaded yet? And he said no. And I was like, bullshit, right? But then he kept showing up like that. Like he actually sent the package and he actually put the money on the books. Like it was so weird because the only people that had ever consistently been there for me was my family. As I tell my story, I'll tell you that my mother nearly loved me to death. She is an absolutely amazing woman, and when I grow up, I want to be just like her. So eventually, I do get paroled, and he's at the Sam house, and I get paroled, and he comes and picks me up. We go pick up my kids so I can see them. I feel awkward. I feel like I don't know them, and I really don't. Because up to that point, I hadn't really done anything to be considered their mother. So I got out on a Wednesday. We spent the night in a hotel. Thursday night, we went to a meeting, and I heard a woman that was standing up there share her story. She had dreadlocks and tattoos all over, and she was gay, and I thought, she's telling my story. She's saying things that I would never have admitted had happened to me or that I had been through. And this woman is standing up there, and she's just saying it. Like, how in the hell does that work? I was like, okay, well, maybe this AA isn't quite what I thought it was. Because I told my family, I'm going to AA. You know, you may not let me parole to your house anymore, but I'm going to AA. I didn't think I was staying. I didn't think I was actually, like, going to get sober, stay sober. Like, I didn't realize that I was doing my first 2 years of my sobriety when I was locked up. I had no clue. I did have a girl that I didn't like tell me, oh, well, why don't you come to one of those meetings? Because I was looking at the book when I got sent back to camp and then back, you know, for getting in trouble. I was reading the big book, and I was reading the front half, actually, and I was thinking, all right, I could do that, but I ain't doing that. You can skip that step. All right, keep moving. And my bunkie below actually happened to be a girl that I ran the streets with. And her name was Kathy, and she stood up and she goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm reading this book. She goes, you ain't gonna do that shit when you get out. Stop faking. And then the other girl that was like, why don't you come to the meeting? I'm like, I'll show you. I'll show up to the meeting. How do you like me now? So like my first AA was like a resentment, and that's why I did it. But you know, whatever works. And so that second night out, I went to a meeting, and then that Friday night, I went to a meeting that was at the Sam house. It's called the Friday Night Survivors Group, halfway house. And that first night there, the guy pointed to this lady that was sitting at one of the tables with some other women around her, and said, go ask her to be your sponsor. I said, okay. I didn't understand what a sponsor was, so I fell for that trick. So I went and I asked her, and I sat down, and I said, could you be my sponsor? And she was like, how much time you got? And I was like, well, about 2 years. And she goes, oh, yeah? So why do you need a sponsor now? I said, because I'm not in prison, and I don't know how to do anything out here. I know how in prison. At one point, they actually told my mom that I could not live in an unstructured environment, that I was mentally ill, and I could not do it. Basically, it was just the early signs of alcoholism, and I just hadn't, you know, buried myself deep enough is all that was. And I asked her, and she was like, so what the F do you need me for? And I'm like, okay. She's kind of rough, brutal, but all right, I'll go for it. We exchanged phone numbers, and she said, call me tonight when you get home, and, you know, you have some quiet time. And I did call her. I called her, and we talked for a little bit, and she told me that she was going to have me do 90 meetings in 90 days, that we were going to meet once a week and go through the book, that we were also going to, that I was also going to call her, text messages. She didn't even text at this point in time. she didn't text. So, and she had like the oldest little like flip phone still. So like texting was difficult for her. We understood why she didn't. And I said, okay. She told me that she would never ask me to do anything that she hadn't already done or that she was not willing to do herself. And I thought, all right, that's cool. But it's 90 meetings in 90 days. Like, really? Like, that seems excessive. So I called my mom. And I said, Mom, I got a sponsor in AA. Damn it, I'm proud now, right? See, I told you I'm doing AA. I got a sponsor. I don't know what that means, but I got one. And I told her, I said, she told me that I needed to do 90 meetings in 90 days. And my mom said, well, that seems a little excessive. I said, well, she told me I got loaded every day so I can go to a meeting every day. And Mom would go, oh, then that makes sense. Yeah, that's right. And I'm like, shared too much. Great, now Mom's on board with her. Did not manipulate my way through that one. So I started going to her house. One of the first times I went to her house, I told her, I said, just so you know, I said, I have a problem with this whole God thing. And she said, okay, what step are you on? I was like, duh, none. And she said, then don't worry about it. I'm like, glad I set her straight. All right, we're good. Done with the God thing. We sat down together, and she asked me if I had kids, and I said yes. And she said, are they in your life? I said, well, they live with my mom and my sister. And she said, really? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you're lucky. You don't deserve them. And I was like, wow, that's brutal. You are a bitch. And she said, what I mean is you've never done anything to deserve to be called their mother. And she was right, 150%. I dropped them off at my mom's house, my sister's house, whoever's house, and I felt like I was a good parent because I wasn't going to drag my kids with me through the streets as I stole cars, got loaded, got arrested. You know what I mean? Like, I thought that made me a good mom. It just made me an absent mom. I remember one time I went over to my sister's house, and I don't know how loaded I was, but I had been up for a while, and my sister would let me crash in her spare bedroom on the floor sometimes. Part of her lease agreement was that I was not allowed to live there because it was my aunt's house that she rented. And my oldest daughter was there, and her friends were there, and she was so excited to introduce me. And I was like, why would you be excited to introduce me? Look at me. Look at me. I'm totally strung out. I got the cops on my back. I'm running and gunning, and I'm just here so I can just catch a break for just 30 minutes. And so she leaves the room, I close the door, and I pick up, and I get a little more numb because, boy, howdy, I did not like that feeling. And so back to the sponsor. I started going to her house. I had to ride the bus to her house. Like every week, I had to ride the bus to her house. And that I understood because she worked like a swing shift at the buffet. Mind you, we're in Vegas, so things are open 24 hours a day and Sundays, which was a huge adjustment when I came to Utah. Yeah. So, and I'd go over there and we would read the book and we would talk, and I would have homework, you know, to go home and work on the book. And what's funny is, like, I'd see other AA people that I was meeting on the bus, and they would have their big book with them, and they were going to see their sponsor. And I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like, we're like networking. She'd make me, she didn't make me, but I always had to ride the bus home. Now, where I lived was not a great neighborhood. If you're familiar with Vegas, it was Sierra Vista and the convention center. It was one of the worst parts of town. Like, I had a show outside my window. Like, if I went to dinner and came home, it was like dinner in a movie. Like, almost like, you know? Because I was sober, and it was kind of weird because, like, the people in the neighborhood, like, they didn't approach me and try to sell me crack or anything else. And I was kind of surprised. I'm like, why not? I guess I'm not giving off the vibe anymore. Like, hey, what you got, buddy? So, yeah, the buffet and where I lived were not that far from each other. And I'm thinking, why don't you just let me hang out and you drop me off on your way home? She told me later on, she said, I had needed to know that you were willing. Are you willing to go to any lengths for your sobriety? And, like, when you're early on, you don't really understand what that means, and you say yes, and then you're like, whoa, overcorrected. Maybe not that. Luckily, nothing that she asked me to do, I didn't have to, you know, I didn't realize as we were going through the steps that by the time I got to step 3, I didn't realize that I was already developing a relationship with God. One of the things she did end up telling me to do is say a prayer in the morning and say a prayer at night. In the morning I say, please keep me sober. It doesn't need to be fancy, just that simple. God, please keep me sober. Whatever God or whatever you are out there, just keep me sober today, please. And at night say thank you, right? So I did that. And I didn't realize that I was really and truly starting to build a relationship with my own higher power. My higher power can't be found in any one book. I actually, when I was in college, I took a religion class because I wanted to know about more religions. Like what brings people together, and hope does, and I started to have hope. I didn't understand how to live life on life's terms. Like I didn't know. I didn't, like when I was loaded and we'd be in the house that like we'd rented with fraudulent ID, and we had to go out to the street and actually turn the water on because they like were ready to lock the thing out. I didn't understand how the neighbors knew it's Thursday, take the garbage cans out to the curb. Like, how did you remember it's Thursday and you need to like take the trash out? Right? Like that just seemed like really huge to me when I first got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, you know that it's Thursday, and you know what that means. To this day, my husband, grateful, takes the garbage cans out to the curb. That's how I know it's Tuesday. So, you know, baby steps. So me and her are continually working the steps and going to meetings, 90 meetings in 98 days. Thank God for the Las Vegas Roundup, because I was able to squeeze the last couple in that 90-day cutoff point. So I was good. Yes, 3 meetings in 1 day, caught up. And it was awesome, because what I didn't understand is it wasn't a punishment to do 90 meetings in 90 days. It gave me an opportunity to get familiar with the faces, so that when I am in the meeting, I don't feel quite so alone, because I'm like, hey, I remember you. I remember your face. All right, friendly faces. It was the laughter. For me, it was the laughter. I continued going to that Friday night survivors group meeting for years. The only time I wasn't going was when I was working at night, because I was a waitress for the first 5 years out of prison. Speaking of working at night, there's one night where I'm driving home, and I was thinking about, all right, I made this much in tips, and my check is coming, and so I can pay this bill, and I can do that with this, get the groceries with that, the kids need a haircut. And I was like, holy crap, I'm adulting. Like, and I called her up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I am adulting. Like, I am doing the adult stuff. I am paying bills. Aren't you proud of me? My sobriety was spent in some of the not prettiest neighborhoods in Las Vegas. That's where most of my meetings were. And I remember one night, Grandpa, Papa Sammy, who's passed away now, but got to see me sober. I was over at their house, and he was dropping me off at a meeting at the Sam house, and it's dark, and the freaks come out at night, and it's full on, like, it's Friday night, yeah, let's go. And we pull up, and, like, the porch is well lit, so once you get to Sam house, you feel safe, you're good. And he's like, I don't understand. I said, what? He said, you're not on parole anymore, are you? And I said, no. He said, then why are you still going to these classes? Like I told you, he's the pull yourself up from your bootstraps. And I said, well, Grandpa, I figure that I spent the last 25, 30 years getting loaded. So I'm going to do this thing for 25, 30 years, and then we'll see where we're at. He was like, all right, don't they have these meetings in better neighborhoods? I like the low bottom, indigent, drunk, alcoholic, drug addict. Like, that's fine with me. Those are my people. A lot of men came through that Samaritan house that were coming out of prison. And so I was able to share my story of going to prison, getting out, and actually not going back to prison. Like my second, because I did go more than once, by the way. My second time in prison, like when they were booking me in, I was proud of myself because I'm like, it's been 7 years since I was here. Ha! See, I didn't revolving door. I waited 7 years. The point is, you're not supposed to go back, apparently. Who knew? So I keep going to meetings. I start learning how to be a mom. My oldest daughter admitted that she had been cutting on herself. She'd been living with my sister, and she said she felt like my sister didn't understand her the way that I could, because she understood that I had a mental obsession for more, and I did not care that it hurt. I didn't care that it hurt me. I didn't care that it destroyed my family. It was my way of dealing with life, period. And so she came to live with me. Now, mind you, I'm like in this little one-bedroom, bedbug-infested apartment that it's kind of furnished now. You know, we got some stuff. It came with a couch, but and it has a little kitchen. But it is a little couch, but she did not care. And I was so excited to finally have one of my kids under my roof. And once my mom saw that I could do that, she said, hey, at the beginning of the next school year, make sure you have rooms for your kids. I'm like, oh, crap, they're coming back. Ooh. So through AA, we ended up finding a house to live in. And the school was right around the corner. And I started getting my kids up and like getting them off to school. Wow. That's crazy to me. My youngest daughter, you know, at one point, my parole officer, because I was only on parole for like 45 days, I could have expired my sentence. And my parole officer asked, why did you parole out? Like you had like an extra 2 weeks and you would have been done, no paper. I said, if I waited an extra 2 weeks, I wouldn't see my youngest daughter get to go to her first day of school. And I don't know about you, but I've missed a lot of firsts that I can't ever make up, ever. So I wanted, you know, I wanted life to be different at that point. I just didn't understand. Like the thought of getting sober and being sober, like, was so scary because I don't know what that looks like. What does that look like when, you know, the shit's hitting the fan and the bill's got to be paid, the kids need this, I don't know where I'm going, I got fired from my job, like what happens? Like how do you just do that sober? Like I didn't know what that looked like, so it was fear. I would rather have sat in my own hell than to have actually lived a sober life, because I just didn't know what that looked like. So yeah, I have all the kids. I'm still with him. It's not him, but that him. And we end up moving from that house into a little bit nicer house, and I'm doing really good with my kids. I would tell them all the time, I'd be like, slow down. I'm still getting the hang of this whole mom thing, okay? Just chill out, relax, let's figure it out. I made amends to my children, even though at that age they didn't really understand. My middle daughter, she would really like to tell me why. I'd be like, what's going on? Talk to me. And she'd tell me, why should I talk to you now? You weren't there back then. Finally, I got smart one day and I was like, but Grandma was, so why don't you go talk to her? And she really got pissed when I told her that. All three of my daughters are in my life today, and I got a bonus daughter from my husband. And we have a total of 5 grandkids, ranging from 1 to 10. And they call us. We call them. Like, it's so funny. He's the fun guy. He's the fun grandpa. So, like, they call me, and then they're like, where's Grandpa? Thanks. That took, what, 20 seconds? Thanks, kid. But just the fact that I'm married to a man that my grandkids absolutely love, that means a lot to me, you know? That means a lot to me because nobody liked my boyfriends back then. So I was with this guy in AA for 5 years, so now I have about like 7 years sobriety. I've gone through the steps, and I started to realize that I'm not happy in my relationship. Now, I'm the kind of gal that I will stay with you and let you mentally abuse me as much as you can. I don't care. I'm your doormat. Just, I don't want to be alone. I want to at least be able to say, you're my boyfriend, right? And I let you treat me like absolute dog shit. Like you treat the dog better than you treat me. But that's okay, as long as I'm not alone. Well, I really am alone. I just am trying to hide from that fact, right? Because it's very, very lonely when you're out there, and it doesn't matter. You can be in this room with all these people who actually only want what's best for you, and you are completely alone. So if you're sitting in here tonight and you feel totally alone, I get it. If you stay around here long enough, I promise that feeling will start to go away. May come back every now and then, but you know, you'll know how to work through it at that point. Where was I? It was the first time in my life where I actually broke off a relationship. Like I had never done that before. And so we split up. He moves out. I'm scared to death because now I'm a single mom with a single income. Done. And I'm like, great. My best friend calls me up one day and she's like, Lisa, we need to go to dinner. We haven't gone to dinner for a while. And I'm like, okay. So we go to dinner and she goes, hey, I found out that him has been with some lady that's pregnant and about to have his kid. I'm like, excuse me? Turns out he had an affair for like 18 months with a woman that he worked with who also was married, and she was married to a Hispanic man, and he was like a big blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy, and so that baby came out blonde as hell with bright blue eyes, and I'm like, how? Not my business. But when I found out, like, I felt absolutely so embarrassed, right? All of our AA friends, they're gonna know. Oh my gosh, I can't. His sponsor was actually my sponsor's husband, because we had been together and they felt that we had a healthy enough relationship that they were safe to both sponsor us, because that can be a tricky thing when it's like, well, my sponsee, well, your sponsee, you know. And my sponsor, Donna, that's my Las Vegas sponsor. Jody is my Utah sponsor. Yay. And Jody's the woman that I'm about to get to know, and it's going to be amazing. I can promise you this. But she actually called up my best friend and was like, you really need to stop bringing this gossip and these lies to Lisa. She's already going through enough. She doesn't need more. Honestly, that made me feel so much better, because it was like, all right, I'm not the only one that was fooled. Yes, they all believed it too. And so it was the first time I ever actually walked away from a relationship, because I actually had a little bit of self-esteem, and I actually knew that I was unhappy. And that's because I'd done the steps, and that's because I stayed in contact with my sponsor. And honestly, with my sponsor, she seems tough on the outside, but she's really not. Her and her husband ride bikes, Harleys, and it's a whole lot of fun going on bike rides and stuff like that. Like, it's just another outdoor curricular activity. And today, me and my husband have a boat, and that's our outdoor activity, you know? Anything to let the wind fly through your hair, flow through your head, and let all your thoughts just kind of drift away, all the stress. And so I was honestly afraid to try to lie to her, because I was like, she's gonna know, she's gonna know. So when I was sitting in this room a couple weeks ago, and Jody shared, I don't remember what it was shared, but you'd said something about being sober since 2002, and that you'd been to prison. And I liked what you said, and I was like, that's my chick. That's the woman I've been waiting for. Yes. So I made sure I went and talked to her. I was like, finally, I've been here for 2.5 years. I need a sponsor that gets to see my face on a regular basis. And as they get to know me, and they say, how are you doing? And I say, fine, they can say, bullshit. What's going on? Because if you don't have somebody that's going to pull your covers, they're just going to be sweet and talk nice and pretty things. Like, yeah, that's great, makes you feel good for a moment, but what happens when, you know, when life gets lifey? You need somebody that's not going to listen to your bullshit and let you manipulate them. because we are master manipulators. And I was actually diagnosed as a master manipulator, so I was pretty proud of that for quite some time until I realized it's actually not, that's a character defect. Steps 6 and 7, yeah. And so me and her walked through that together. The first time I seen her husband, he said, "Come here, Lisa," and he gave me a big old hug, and I said, "Kim, I thought you were going to hate me because I thought that he was going to be mad at me for breaking up with him." And that's when I found out, through that entire ordeal, what I found out is that the people in Alcoholics Anonymous loved me for me, not because I was with him. And it made me feel really, really good. That made me feel really good. And I actually had an old timer tell me, "Lisa, the way you're handling this is amazing. You're handling it with grace and dignity." Alcoholics Anonymous is what gave me back my grace and my dignity. Grace is considered an unwarranted gift. And I don't know about you, but when I got here, Santa Claus just threw my list out the window, right? And when I got here, life got real. And as I went through each step, I didn't realize that my perspective was changing, right? I didn't realize that I was looking at the world differently. I'd been through the steps now, and my sponsor was like pushing me to take other girls through the steps, right? And I'm like, I don't know. What am I going to offer them? Like, I don't know. Wow, I wasn't taking enough notes the first time we went through. Can we start over? She was trying to hurry up and finish our steps, or finish the first 164 pages right before my birthday. And I was trying to push it out longer. I'm like, no. What do you mean I'm not coming to your house every week to talk to you? She said, "You're going to find a girl and you're going to take up that time. She's going to be coming to your house." And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So my first sponsee ends up being a chick that had been in the program for 10 years and had never actually gotten a clean 1-year chip. She'd actually planned her own 1-year birthday party, even knowing she was taking dirty chips through like half of it. They call her One Shoe Sue, because when she was homeless and living on the streets in Vegas, which mind you, the ground gets extremely hot, she only had one flip-flop. And so when it got too hot, she'd like slip it to the other foot. And she happened to tell somebody this story, and it has stuck. So anytime you see like a single shoe, like you're like, oh, I gotta get that for her. The woman's gotta have lots of mismatched shoes. But she'd been around the program for 10 years. I'm like, what in the hell am I gonna teach her? Like, I've barely been through this. And Donna said, but the one thing that you've done that she hasn't been able to do is stay sober. I started to feel like it was my responsibility. And I found out it's not my responsibility to keep you sober. You have to do the work. I'm just there to show you the work and help you along your way, help you understand what's in that book, and what's behind each step. I've been through the steps. She was actually the first girl that I ever got through the first 164 pages. So she's my #1 girl, and she will always be my #1 girl. And she reminds me of that too. So One Shoe Sue is somebody that I absolutely adore. So now I am living life on life's terms. I'm single, I have my kids, and I start posting like maybe some stuff that might be a little jabby on Facebook, but not nothing too direct, but it was funny stuff. And as I'm walking out of a meeting one night, this guy goes, "Lisa, hey." I said, "What?" He said, "I really like what your posts on Facebook." I said, "Really? I'll instant message you later." When I did break up with him, one of the pieces of advice that my sponsor gave me at the time was, don't sleep your way around to where you're uncomfortable to be in a meeting. You don't want to be in a meeting and being like, 1, 2, 3, damn. Because then you get uncomfortable, right? Then you don't feel comfortable, and you can't go into the room, or you got to go to get your medicine to feel better. And there's some great advice. I'm very glad she gave that advice to me. I'd previously met this guy when he had a coffee commitment at our home group, which was a beginner's meeting. It's called Beginning the AA Way of Life. And it's like 100 plus people. It's a big room, bigger than this one, but like more tables and stuff. So probably about the same amount of people. And so making coffee for them, plus you have the old timers who want their decaf, so don't screw that up. And I go back into the back, and he's back there, and I'm like, do you need some help? And he's like, no, I think I got it. I was like, take a deep breath. When your commitment's almost over, that's when you'll finally have the hang of it. No worries. And I wasn't sure of his name, so I asked him, I was like, what was your name again? And he said, Dano. And I was like, okay. I didn't know at the time. His thought was like, you don't remember my name? That's all right. I married him, and I stole his last name. How about that? And so what it's like now, like I didn't spend a whole lot of time on what it used to be like, because I think every one of you has a story to tell of your own personal hell that you choose to keep living in every time you choose to pick up again. But that's because all of us know, like when I got here to AA, they asked, what do you want? I said, I just want to go back there. Everybody in this room has a there. That there got you here. And it was painful, and it was miserable. And that, in the book, when it says incomprehensible demoralization, it's the first time I was like, yeah, I think that describes it. I'm pretty sure that's, yep, that nailed it. Just those words together seemed like it was just, oof. So then I meet him, and next thing I know, we're engaged, and we're going to meetings together, and life is getting good, right? Life is still getting good. And then his daughter has her first baby, then my oldest daughter has a baby, and next thing you know, we're like grandparents. And then we move into a house that has a pool. He just sent me some memories today of us in the backyard with all of our grandkids playing in the pool. Like, Mom and Dad left. Like, here's your grandkids. Bye. I can tell you right now, like, they didn't even trust me with my own kids next, much less grandkids. So what it's like now is absolutely amazing. Not every day is perfect. I don't have rainbows and bunnies flying out my ass. Life still gets lifey and things still get hard. But having a sponsor that you can talk to when life gets lifey is gonna save your ass. So I highly, highly suggest that you get a sponsor. My sponsor told me that anything she ever told me to do was a suggestion. So kind of like if I wanted to jump out of a plane, she would suggest I use a parachute. So I do suggest you get a sponsor, and I do suggest you do the steps. When I did my step 4 with my sponsor, she actually, the Vegas sponsor, me and her are about to go through these steps. So I get to keep doing it. By the way, I've been sober since August 31st of 2007. So that's 16 years. I can't believe I'm on this side of the 15. Like, I've realized that earlier. I'm like, wow, holy shit. Didn't expect to be here this long. I'm surprised I even took a 3-year trip. Like, I didn't expect to be there that long. And when I did my 4th step with her, she said, I thought you were going to be more of a crier. And I was like, why? I already know the dirty shit I did. I'm just putting it on pen and paper. I know how manipulative I am. So please, don't be afraid of your 4th step. You already know what you did. You're pretending you don't. Trying to push that shit out. Don't let it out. We're only as sick as our darkest secrets. So when you're going through your 4th step and your sponsor says at the end, is there anything you left off this step? That's when you tell them that deep, dark secret that you've been holding on to because you weren't going to tell any. You'd go to the grave. You were never going to let anybody know. I had one, and I gave it to her, and I couldn't believe I'd actually said it to her. I was like, wow, I actually said it. What's funny is she was like, no skin off my ass. Like, hello, I've done the same crap. I don't know, I was thinking this morning when we were here at the meeting that when Jody is talking about like stealing a car or something like that, and like you look at her, like, you steal a car? You get to see us all pretty and AA cleaned up, right? And a lot of people raised their hands that had 30 days. Like, you may not be feeling all pretty and cleaned up yet. Like, hey, I got a roof over my head. That's a start. I got food in my belly. That's another start. And, but just know, like, we did the things that you did. Like, we earned our seat in Alcoholics Anonymous. To earn your seat in Alcoholics Anonymous, you have to live through hell. I once heard that Alcoholics Anonymous gave me a brand new life. I got to trade in my old one and get a brand new one. My brand new life, I went to college online, and I actually graduated with a bachelor's. I'm very proud of that because my grandmother, Darlene, who's passed away also, she started suffering from dementia to where we were having family gatherings and we were having to explain to her, okay, this is your daughter, these are her 2 daughters, these are those 2 daughters. And she's like, so I'm a great grandma? And we're like, yeah. And she's like, I'm a badass. Mind you, she's very, very Mormon and never cussed. So it was like, all right, apparently you forgot that part. And, but whenever I would see her, she would ask me, are you still going to college? Are you still in college? So even though she couldn't remember her own damn grandkids, for some reason, me going to college was a huge deal to her. At least that's how I felt, to where during COVID, when I finally got my diploma, but no graduation cap and gown might have had, thanks COVID, I held it up to my husband and I started crying because that was for Grandma. You know, I got to do that for Grandma. I also got to get married. My world has come full circle, or my family has come full circle, because I had family that was originally from Utah, moved down to Southern California, where my mom met my dad, and now I'm back up here in Utah. So it's kind of crazy. I was baptized when I was 8. I never felt comfortable sitting in a pew or anything like that. I felt very uncomfortable in church. And today, I can sit in a church and be fine. And it doesn't matter what kind of church. Somebody can say God, and I don't want to kick them in the face. When I first got here, I did. They would get up there to share, and they'd be like, you know, life was going all crazy, and I just said, pause, let me pray, and the day was so much better. And I'm like, I'm going to shut up. I don't want to hear it. Like, I actually got like a knot in my stomach of pissed offedness when they would talk about God. And I don't have that knot today, which is absolutely amazing. Turns out she kind of like backdoored me on that whole God and higher power thing. We are tricky like that. We will feed you AA any way we can. Even my own children will be like, Mom, stop doing AA on me. I'm like, well, it works. But to this day, my kids will tell me, Mom, I kept my side of the street clean, which I basically have AA babies. I didn't drop them off to go get babysat. I just drug them to the meeting with me. Needless to say, my youngest daughter was a great babysitter and make like $20 on a Friday night watching everybody's kids. So, hey, she was happy. My life today, like what it's like, is I look forward to being able to help other people. When I see a good thing happen in your life, I am actually truly happy for you. I'm not thinking, yeah, it happens to them, ain't gonna happen for me. I don't have that negative attitude because I know anything is possible. I know that when I try to live in my own will and I try to, you know, wrestle life and it's going to be this way, if I'm struggling and fighting, it typically means that I am not on the path my higher power has laid out for me. My higher power knew that I needed to have a boyfriend to stay with for 5 years before I met my husband because he hadn't gotten sober yet, so I didn't sleep around AA and have a bad reputation. So I appreciate that, right? And that's kind of how I look at things. Like, hey, it had to happen that way to get me to this point. And I do. I don't know how many times I've been scared, not sure which way life was going to go. And seriously, yes, I did pause and stop trying to wrestle the wheel away from my higher power. That whole, like, Jesus take the wheel. No, Jesus should be driving in the first place. No. Me and my husband have an AA life. We have an AA life. There's 12 principles behind the 12 steps, and that's what you live your life by. And the first one is honesty, which can be really hard for people that are not used to being honest. We typically will lie even when the truth would actually work out better. The sky is not purple, turns out, no matter how much I say it is. But yeah, so like I said at the beginning, my sponsor nicknamed me Prison Chick. And that's because when I came to her, that was about all I knew. I knew about prison. In my career, I am working towards becoming a project manager. So she's always like, PC to PM, here we go. Yeah, you know. But I'm here to tell you, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, you see that we have this good life, but you also hear, I got sober in 2007. That's a long time ago. There was a lot of bumps along the way to get me, you know. I mean, God had to have them fire me from one job just so I would like finally go to a place where I was actually going to grow and learn, because they were not going to help me grow and learn. But I was holding on. I'm holding on. Yes, I'm applying to places, but I won't apply there because, you know, God finally said, fine, you don't want to listen to me? You don't want to take the hint? Somebody take her a box and tell her she's fired. Thank you. And it's in times when things like that happen that like you're really, really scared standing in the doorway